So we're going to record a commentary track for A Complete Unknown, a movie that we're all extremely passionate about. This is Matt.
This is Shane.
And this is Matt. Matt G.
And I'm super psyched. I think we should just chop right into it. Are you guys ready?
All right, I'm going to count down from 3. 3, 2, 1, go. And on go, we're all going to hit play. Sound good?
That sounds great.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
All right.
Here we go.
All right, right off the bat, you're getting some Woody. It's a Searchlight picture. Hell of a logo here, by the way. Shane, do you have motion smoothing on your TV? I meant to bring this up.
I don't know what
before.
motion
we need a 20-minute break to talk to Shane about motion smoothing.
I don't know what it is.
Don't make me pull up the Tom Cruise video where he tells you how to turn off motion smoothing on your TV.
It's a public service, really.
Do you know what song this is?
I'm going to guess that it's called So Long, So Good to Know Ya.
Matt Galvin, are you a Woody Guthrie fan?
I am a Woody Guthrie appreciator. I mean, Woody recorded so long ago that it's one of those things. It's kind of like listening to Alan Lomax tapes of old blues musicians, right? It's like you have to be really invested, almost intellectually.
Yeah.
To get into it. So,
well, okay.
I can't say I'm a fan.
So this
admirer.
Right off the bat, we're getting into one of my talking points here. You just teed me up beautifully, which is well, first of all, let's talk about the movie for a second. This was one of the first, I think, things that people saw about this movie when it was filming is him like walking around Greenwich Village. And there's Cafe Wa. We're going to come back to that later on.
Yep.
Right there. As soon as I saw images of this movie being filmed, was afraid that it was going to be like a cheesy, recreation of like day for day, the things that everybody knew about Bob Dylan already. And when the trailer came out, I think a lot of people were making jokes like Walk Hard, like it's just going to be a super generic blender kind of a story of all the things that everybody already knows about Bob Dylan. Did you guys feel the same way going into the movie, like a little bit suspicious?
100%.
Absolutely. I was certain it was going to be terrible. Certain.
Yeah, and I think that there's so many people who have emotional connections to Bob Dylan's music. It's highly personal to so many people in so many different ways that I think everybody maybe even had their own reasons to be skeptical about it.
I mean, it's a pretty big subject to tackle and have people be okay with understanding that you're going to do it right. You know?
Yeah. And I'm reminded of that famous Hemingway quote about a terrible version of a movie that was made based off one of his short stories. I think it was In Our Time. But the quote was something to the effect of, you see someone do something like that to something you love, and it's like someone pissed in your beer. So I was worried that this whole movie was going to be pissing in everyone's beer. But it didn't. It delivered.
It did.
It really did.
And I'm well documented with saying how much I dislike Timothee Chalamet. Like, I really don't like him as an actor at all. Like, I don't know. I just don't like him. And so I was extra skeptical of this movie because I was like, how is this guy going to pull this off? But he does, and it's great.
Oh, man. I've always been a Timmy stan. I'm going on the record.
Why did you not like him? What did you see him in that you didn't like him in?
Anything? I don't know. I just don't like him. I can't say why.
Kylie Jenner's Instagram?
I don't even have a good reason. I think he's objectively a good actor and all that stuff. I just don't like him. Something about him. I don't know.
But the scene here, guys, I think this is a great way to kick off the film because it positions Woody in such an important way as someone who's a leader in sort of this burgeoning folk movement, right? And also he's clearly got balls, right? Busting out his banjo at his court hearing. So showing that courage, that willingness to sort of thumb your nose in the institutions and powers that be. I loved this as an opener.
Well, if you're gonna say that Woody Guthrie, sorry, not Woody, Pete Seeger. If you're gonna say Pete Seeger is like the Salieri of this movie, which I'm just gonna go right in and draw some Amadeus references here, right? You have to make him not a bad guy, right? Because it would be very easy later in the movie to say, well, Pete Seeger is acting like this because he's jealous that Bob Dylan broke through commercially and he didn't. Like, obviously that's not true, but people could think that or say that, or it would be reductive to paint him in that way, probably.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that scene does, which is important, is that in the 50s in America, there was a lot of, you saw I don't know if you saw the guy at the outside had a sign that said "Better Red than Dead" or something like that.
Yep.
There was a lot of communist sort of socialist movements in the United States where these people were like either on the same side as like the communist thing or not. So like it was a very heavy time for those politics as well.
The stakes were high. You're getting at something interesting here, which is that it's easy for music movies to kind of like make a figure seem more important than they are. Like ultimately, this is not Saving Private Ryan. Like we're talking about show business, but the fact that the people around this music scene were really like pretty idealistic and definitely thought of music as a gateway to like some kind of more important social message or movement does make it a little bit more important in cultural history, I think. Like, this is not just Bohemian Rhapsody where Queen is trying to become the biggest band in the world. Like, there's something else happening around all of these people
100%.
Culturally at the time.
I mean, that's one of the reasons he was, such a breakthrough artist. He was able to capture that, and then people reacted accordingly.
There's Woody. Guys, I really got off to a bad start dropping Woody when I meant Pete. Can we maybe redo this?
Start the whole thing.
Let's go. Let's.
We can drop that in later at the end.
We can do a cut.
But I did love the Woody, Pete, Bob triumvirate here.
Yeah.
Like, this three-way dynamic is something that I never knew a lot about, other than sort of the apocryphal like stories of like Bob singing to Woody in the hospital, of course. But this three-way relationship and the dynamics here is really rich. It's really amazing.
This scene is when I realized that the movie was going to be good.
Same. 100%.
Yep.
Because just to your point, Matt, like there's things that we're like loosely aware of historically as far as how all these artists came to know each other.
Yep.
But the people talking to each other as human beings, famous, famous, significant people that are going to be remembered for 100+ years, like in a non-professional moment.
Yeah, it's adding that texture and color with like pegged around the things we all know happened is part of what makes making a movie like this really fun.
Yeah.
It's so fun to watch.
I heard the director say something interesting, which is that, the book that this was based on loosely, Dylan Goes Electric, right? It all leads up to Newport, and certainly that is like the end of the movie. But most of that book takes place like after 1964, right? So he's already like pretty famous by that point. What's interesting about this movie that I don't think we really have ever seen before, maybe in the Scorsese documentary, is like what was Bob Dylan like before anybody had a camera on him. There's so much kind of mythology around it that the director felt like it was really important to really tell that story too, in addition to what's in the book. And I think it's cool. I mean, we'll get back to it because I know that part is really exciting to you, Matt, like when it cuts to 1965 or whatever. But it really is like, it's kind of like two movies where the first part is like before he gets famous, and then the second part is after, and how he deals with all of that stuff. All right, now we're really about to see some magic here.
Now we're cooking.
Yeah. So, all three of us play music. And I think I would speak for everybody when I say that when I saw this in the movie theater, you can clearly tell he is playing the guitar and singing.
Yes.
It's not lip syncing. You recognize the ad libs that are happening on the guitar. And it just was not what I was expecting.
And it's not an impression, importantly.
Right. I think everybody was probably clenched up, thinking to themselves, what are his vocals going to be like?
Right.
And if it was a pure impression, that would maybe be hard to sit through for 2.5 hours.
That would be really tough. And it takes a lot of guts to steer yourself in a direction artistically where you're clearly mirroring someone's sound and style or trying to pay homage to it without falling into mimicry. And man, I just think he did such a good job doing that.
Yeah, that's the magic of the movie, is that he does it in a way that is sort of singular for himself. You know,
Right.
And that's what I liked about the SNL performance too.
Okay.
Even though that was a big mess in a ways, like he wanted to do his take on Dylan and have it be, its own statement.
And I think that's where he jumped the shark a bit with this.
Yeah.
Matt and I disagree strongly on that performance. But just to go back to the original point, I think he really does nail it, and he really did embody it in a way that feels like a tribute and not a ripoff.
Mm-hmm.
And he spent I read an interview with him. He spent years preparing for this role.
Yep.
And he had this very famous diction coach that helped him with the voice and helped him with the speech patterns and everything. And he worked on it for a very, very, very long time. And it pays off, right?
So the movie was supposed to shoot before COVID?
That's right. Yes.
And having all the extra time, there's a really cool video clip you guys have probably seen where he's working on Dune. And he's in the trailer, and he's all dressed up like the Dune character playing Dylan songs on an acoustic guitar. So he had all this time to practice and learn how to do it. Which is, I don't know how the movie works without that performance.
Well, and, just to call back the point you made, when he sings that song to Woody, that's when you're like, oh, shit, this movie's going to work. This is going to happen. Yeah, it's kind of nice.
So, all right.
Foreshadowing.
So this is the plot of the movie, right here.
And it's setting up the conflict device.
Yes, exactly. Now, I would say that Bob Dylan, I don't know that he ever had a thesis for what he was trying to be. I think that he knew what he liked. I think he had a natural instinct to be a part of the folk movement, and probably in a large part because of Woody Guthrie and the way that his music spoke to him. But when he's talking about rock and roll and Buddy Holly and all of that stuff, he's not coming to New York to take over the folk scene.
Well, I think this is another thing I appreciate about the film, which is that it doesn't shy away from Bob's ego or his ambition.
Right.
And I think part of him knew that there was a way that scene could benefit him, that in a way that he could leverage it, right? But he was and this is what is so great about the central conflict of the film, never wanted to be beholden to a scene or beholden to other people's expectations of him, right?
Very much so.
Which, like, how many people could you say that about now?
I know. Yeah.
Like, who are artists who have emerged in the last 20 years even, where you could ask them, like, are you not trying to do a certain thing? Because it seems like you are. Or the people that just come right out and say what their ambitions and intentions are. I think, to your point, Matt, like, the movie addresses Bob's ego about it, and it's obviously true, but he's never delineated it. He's never come out and said what it was, right?
Yeah, there's always mystery there. Yeah. Intentionally preserved mystery.
Mm-hmm. So
this is a hell of a scene too.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that they centered the music so much, and
Totally.
there's so many extended good start, great line, so many extended songs and renditions of songs.
Yeah, for a music fan, this movie is really, I think that's one of the reasons that I wanted to see it so many times in the movie theater. Is it is kind of like going to a concert. Like,
Yes.
There's not that many movies that you could really say that about, where you have the feeling of, like, I feel like I'm in this is the kind of feeling you have when you're in a room full of people who are either singing along with the performance or, witnessing something.
Yeah.
Which obviously becomes even more of a thing once you get to Newport.
Also, just a aside about this scene, I don't know if you've seen, but there's a YouTube video you can find of Pete Seeger doing this song to an audience of people. Like, they clearly copied it for this, but it's amazing. You got to watch it.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh boy. Here we go.
Joni.
Now, this was not something I was expecting, which is like full-blown movie star performance.
She's incredible in this film. She's so good.
It's nuts. And she was not really a singer before the movie, supposedly. Also, I was never a huge Joan Baez fan, but I listened to music made by other artists who are massive Joan Baez fans. And so, again, for this movie, like, from a discovery standpoint, super cool to see that Laura Marling and First Aid Kit and Lana Del Rey and so many other artists that are really, really meaningful to me. A lot of dots connecting, understanding the people that grew up with the music of Joan Baez.
What legendary rock band covered a Joan Baez song on their first album?
Stumped. You got me.
Oh, I got it. Led Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin. Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You.
Yep.
Dang.
Great song. I mean, this is an absurd performance. I listened to the soundtrack to this movie a bit, which, like, people could make a joke about why bother listening to Bob Dylan songs that are recorded by Timothee Chalamet, but soundtracks are always fun for the purposes of just kind of, like, remembering the movie that you really liked.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I can listen to the Life Aquatic soundtrack, and it's kind of like the movie plays out while you listen to the album, or Rushmore, or any of those kind of movies. But her recordings on this are kind of like the thing I go back to the most, probably. Like this one and Silver Dagger, which comes up later. Really cool stuff. James Austin Johnson from Saturday Night Live, a cameo right there.
Oh, that's right.
Who does one of the great Bob Dylan impressions. I don't know if you've ever seen this bit. He was like on, he was on Jimmy Fallon or something, and he does this like
the different eras, right?
The four eras, yeah, and it's so good.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah, so just imagine that you could like walk into a club and see Joan Baez play on Tuesday night. It's pretty crazy, you know? Pretty good times. See why people would want to go there. I mean, now, like, if there was a scene like this, like, it would be on Instagram and you would have thousands of people showing up like it was a new breakfast sandwich.
There's
Not a bad thing. I actually wish that would happen.
And one thing I think about a lot when I saw this movie was the Coen Brothers film Inside Llewyn Davis.
Oh, let's get into it.
Which takes place during the same time frame. And the guy who it's based on is named Dave Van Ronk, who was a folk singer in the 50s. And Bob Dylan actually slept on his couch when he first moved to New York. And he played in all the same places, like the Café Wa, the Gaslight Cafe, like all these like iconic places, and it reminds you how much music was happening in that spot at that time. And he's in this movie. There's a little. I'll point him out to you. Dave Van Ronk is in this movie.
Like the actual person?
Yeah, he was
like
already in it once.
80 years old?
No. He passed away.
Oh.
But there's a character based on him in the movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah, imagine you're watching Bob Dylan's first performance in Greenwich Village. Pretty cool. So, did Bob Dylan play a lot when he lived in Minnesota? Like how much has he performed at this point in history? Does anybody know?
It's a great question. I don't know. I got a bust open chronicle.
Yeah.
So funny you mentioned that.
Hey, there it is.
I haven't read it. I bought it.
I haven't read it
either. It sits on a bookshelf. It looks great.
Have you read it?
I haven't. God, it came out, 15, 20 years ago now?
Yeah.
Is that when he did the Ed Bradley interview on 60 Minutes? When that book came out?
Probably.
Great interview.
Great interview. All right, this song right here. Have you guys ever seen the Scorsese documentary about the early days of Dylan? No Direction Home.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So that came out when, 2003? 2004? Something around there?
Around
Five?
then, yeah.
5? I remember where I was living when I watched it. And for me, it unlocked a whole new admiration for Dylan because I didn't really know the early stuff that much. Like, I was always much more into rock and roll Dylan, and we'll come back to that because I brought in a list of some of my favorite albums, right? And I always thought of his early music, his folkier music, as like stuff they make you listen to in music class when you're in like 5th grade, you know? Like, to your point about Woody Guthrie, right? It feels like Alan Lomax recordings. It feels like American history. It doesn't feel like cool pop music. And I think that's just because I didn't know that many songs. I knew Times Are Changing and some of the other really basic stuff. I did not know this song. There's a whole bunch of stuff, especially in early demo form, that comprises the soundtrack to that Scorsese documentary. And that album is amazing. Like that No Direction Home soundtrack, I listen to this day as much as any Bob Dylan album. And it really unlocked like 60s Dylan. It unlocked that for pre like a Rolling Stone Bob Dylan. Then I got it and was able to dive much deeper into all of those recordings.
So the things I took away from that last scene, and also from him showing up here at the label, is just this self-possession and the confidence that he that he already possesses, right? Signaling just how special this guy is, which I think had to be just part of his persona from the start, right?
Yeah.
It's always been central to his persona, I think. But especially in these early days, to just roll into town from out of nowhere, and not only have the goods in terms of your songwriting, but also to carry yourself in such a way that you captivate people's attention and their imagination. I think they did a really good job getting that vibe.
Yeah. Well, he's got this thing where he can't be anyone but himself, and he is that to the nth degree, right? And to your point, they capture that very well. And that's one of the things that, like, one of my favorite things to do after watching this movie is go back and watch press interviews with Bob Dylan, when he just like asks him questions and he is so evasive, or he like calls them out on it because they want him to be someone and he will not do it. It's great.
So let's talk about that for a second. Why do you think Bob Dylan was so confident? He had not performed that many times, in theory. He didn't have that many songs with him. I don't know that anyone would say that he's especially proficient on the guitar or as a vocalist. So do you think it was him understanding his own power as a writer, or do you think he's just like born with this thing that makes him like have a rocket booster underneath him?
Oh, it's Riz, baby.
Okay. Well, that's a great answer, because I think the magic of this movie is that Timothee Chalamet is in a similar position.
Absolutely. Yes, I think that's a great point to make, that he is he carries himself with a similar self-possession and confidence. And he's also, I think we saw this after the film came out in his acceptance of his Golden Globe, I think it was, that he won, right? Where he said, no, like, I have ambition. I want to be great. I think young Bob would have said something really similar.
Well, certainly if he was being honest.
Yes.
So in that Ed Bradley interview, Ed Bradley asks him something akin to this. And he says that when he was on his way to New York, he knew that he was going to be part of something great. And he had a vision for himself. And he made like a bargain, he says, to like, if he can get in that spot, he'll keep going, which is one of the reasons he always tours and never stops.
Well, I'll tell you, when I walked into that airport kiosk and bought the shirt that we now refer to as the Red Maryland, similarly, I knew that this was history in the making. Generations of legacy about to be born.
Very similar in so many ways. Cultural impact.
I mean, I think some could say that choice somehow retroactively inspired Bob Dylan.
I think that's
himself.
true.
Yeah,
Shane. I think
true.
that's a really great point.
It sent shockwaves back into the past. But how do you do this movie without somebody like Timothee Chalamet? I don't think 10 years ago, who do you put in this movie?
Yeah.
I think Ed Norton would probably say 20 years ago you put Ed Norton in the movie. But how many people are there? Like, I don't think there's anybody else working right now who's got the thing that Timothee Chalamet has, like
I
the
think that's
young
right.
DiCaprio, Nicholson, like all-time actors. Pretty cool that he decides to use his time to do stuff like this and not, superhero movies.
Agreed.
That's good. I'm grateful for that. That's good for the moviegoers. Look at this. Now, how do they make the street look like that? How do they do that stuff?
That's a question.
Do you think that's a soundstage?
No.
That dialogue, though, that interaction he has with Sylvie right there is so central too to signaling sort of the wisdom and knowledge that he's coming in to this experience with. He's like, he knows the things that he needs to do to break through and to be relevant, and he's conscious of it. He's aware of it, right? He's trying to do this. He has ambition.
Yes.
You mean like emulating movie stars?
No, I mean
with the two
when
cigarette
saying,
move.
You know, you only get people's attention if you're a freak. You know.
Oh! I see. Yeah, the speech leading up to the movie.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Got you. Yes.
Another interesting thing is this: the person that this woman is based off of, is kind of well known.
Suze.
But it's Bob Dylan himself asked the director to not use her real name, which is why it's not named. It's like she's the one person he said, please don't use her real name.
Yeah, she passed away. He would not have been able to get her permission to do it. Yeah, that's pretty
and
good.
She was and just like in the film, she was a very big influence on encouraging him and pushing him, and as much as he wanted it for himself, she also helped, which is why she was on the cover of one of his first album or second album.
Always taking shots at the record company. Take it easy, guys. We're doing our best here.
Stop shilling, Maddie.
Covers, more covers. So, one of the things I think about a lot is like, when did the album crystallize as the primary form of a creative expression in music, right? Like, what would you guys say is, if you had to say, what's the first album that works as an album? What would you guys say? Like, famous ones.
You're pushing the bounds of my musical history knowledge.
One of the earliest ones, it's not super early, but Rubber Soul is one of the first I think about all the time.
Yes. Now, so you walked right into what I was going to say. I think the ones that people throw around are like Sgt. Pepper, Revolver, and Rubber Soul. That 3-album run from the Beatles is when the Beatles stopped being like a boy band and started becoming like the dominant sort of creative focal point of like the whole pop music world. Pet Sounds is one that people reference all the time. People say that Sgt. Pepper was written as a response to Pet Sounds, which is like, the album has a point to it. There's a beginning, a middle, and end. There's a concept that plays into how it was recorded. There's a sense of exploration, and I think it's possible that the Beatles and the Beach Boys were also looking at Dylan as a bouncing off point towards like, what does it mean to make a recording? And the thing about covers versus originals is like, Dylan is already on the path to becoming certainly one of the first people to make an album that acts as its own creative statement. Like Highway 61, I would certainly put in that category because, and that's sort of one of the things this movie is leading up to. But I think even before that, Bringing It All Back Home is a statement. You know, like there's a purpose to how he put those songs together and where he puts It's All Over Now, Baby Blue on the record, and it's part acoustic and part electric, and the album cover was something that was like they planned out in advance. It's not just a random studio portrait. Like there's a concept to it. Anyway, it's all around this time. Like the album as a statement definitely is born over the next several years. Unless somebody can come up with an example that I'm not thinking of.
I don't.
I mean, the reason I struggled with the question, Maddie, is because I think I don't know the extent to which there's a layer of subjectivity there, and also sort of a perspective of just looking at rock music. I think all the records you guys mentioned are great examples, and they're all there's a level of intentionality there that is just not present, even in like Dylan's 62 self-titled record, right? Like it's just a collection of songs packaged for consumption. So I think it's a great point, though, that is something that is happening over this era, right?
Well, yes, and what's interesting about the original prompt there, Maddie, is that like you could take an album like Freewheelin', which has iconic Bob Dylan songs on it, but it's not an album,
right?
Like, really,
yeah.
It's still
Yeah.
a collection of great.
It's a bundle.
Collection of great. Yeah, it's a bundle.
A bundle. Wow. Well said. I'm going to use that.
So this guy with the beard, that is Dave Van Ronk. That's the guy. And
okay.
this is the second time I've seen him in the movie, and I think
He was at
the last.
He was at the bar.
He was at the bar,
earlier in
yeah,
the movie.
yeah.
Okay. Way to connect that dot. There's all kinds of like, when I was watching the movie for the first time, like, ooh, who's that supposed to be? Ooh, who's this supposed to be? And we'll come back to it, but I got a little too excited at one point in the movie because there was a character who I thought was going to be Robbie Robertson. And I'm like, oh, baby, we're going to go down the Hawks and the Last Waltz payoff in 3 movies from now, but we'll come back to that.
I think it's interesting how that's the only moment in the movie where you see or hear the name Robert Zimmerman.
Oh.
Also, the first time they really pay off how hard of a person he was to know, and that his own girlfriend didn't know this stuff about him. And that obviously continues until my favorite scene of the movie coming up later when they sing It Ain't Me, Babe.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this was the clip they used in the Oscars.
The twine-wrapped, bulbous bottle of wine in the background is very... I feel like my parents had a few of those in the cellar. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like a table wine.
Isn't that a great visual element of the time? Speaking as someone who wouldn't be born for another, 14 years.
Yeah, I feel like we all saw that in our parents' house or a parents' friend's house.
These artifacts of this age in our homes growing up, right?
Yes.
When I get back, I'd like to get to know that guy. He wrote a 5-minute song about this girl in Minneapolis. Who was that? What happened? You tell me you dropped out of college. You came here with nothing but a guitar. You never talked about your family.
So this, to get back to that book I mentioned, the Inside, Llewyn Davis was based
People
on.
make up their past.
So he, again, it's a thread throughout the whole movie about how mysterious he is. But even, he was sleeping on this guy's couch, and a part of the book was him describing that, this part of his personality of how much he would always mislead people and be mysterious and evasive. And there's a part, you see it a couple times in this movie where he says he worked in a carnival,
Yeah.
and it's in that book where he said that. And
Right.
he's like, you never knew if Bob was making something up to test you or telling you the truth.
Right.
Because one time he told a story about being on a boxcar hitching a ride somewhere with this blues musician, and Dave Van Ronk was like, that's total bullshit. And then they ran into the blues musician in Greenwich Village, and he's like, Bobby, I haven't seen you since the train car. It's like...
That's good.
But talk about committed to the bit. Bob was committed to the bit, right? Bob was committed to this character.
Yes.
And it must have aggravated the people in his life, like Sylvie here, to no end, Because it must, from a distance, as a consumer of his music or of his art, or as a fan, you appreciate the caricature and the persona, and you allow yourself to sort of indulge in it. But if this is a person in your life, it must come across as so arrogant.
Yeah.
It must build up a wall around you, and it must seem delusional.
Well, and that's why, Joan Baez clearly gets so frustrated with him over and over again. I mean, now you guys may have seen this, but after the movie came out, there was sort of like a flood of old Joan Baez clips that appeared for me on Instagram, and it's like when they're filming Ronaldo and Clara, that sort of half-assed movie that he made in the 70s, she's talking about. It's a really funny interview. First of all, they both look like they're so high on cocaine at the time. But he's like, well, you went out and got married without asking me permission. And she's like, Bob, you were already married when that happened. What are you talking about? She calls him on his bullshit all the time, which is what makes her such an interesting character and so important for this movie. But it's interesting, as personal as this movie is, and in Chalamet's portrayal of him, you definitely never get inside his head, as far as I can tell.
No. There's I don't think anyone who has, right? There's another interview I saw with Lenny Kravitz talking about being in Paris, and he was with Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan's like, let's go for a walk. And it was pouring outside. And the interviewer is like, well, why did he want to go for a walk in the rain? He's like, I don't know. He just did.
Wow.
So he's like, well, what did you talk about? He's like, just stuff, politics. I don't know. He just wanted to do it. But you don't know why he's doing it. There's just it's very hard to understand how he operates. This is a crazy, scene too. Just people think the nuclear bomb is coming.
First of all, you can't really walk from the Chelsea Hotel to a club in
I was just going to say, this is the
guitar.
one scene in the movie I didn't love because it felt like they were laying it on a little thick. I think with these historical films, the desire to peg news events to the story and to have them sort of demarcate time is so strong, and I just feel like this was a little too heavy-handed.
Yeah, this is a Forrest Gump moment within your Bob Dylan movie.
Yes, totally.
So while I'm going to make a counterpoint,
Great.
And while I agree that this is a clunky scene and generally feels a little forced, I think what's important that they're doing is trying to insert the times and the amount of pressure that was on people's psyche.
Yes.
And the fact that that's one of the reasons why this guy was so popular was he was able to cut through all of that and play back to people what the times were.
But counterpoint, I think it positions Bob as this extremely courageous, oblivious to the world around him, or willing to stay put in the face of nuclear threat, especially in contrast to Joan. I don't know that we have a lot of evidence of something like that being true. I think it infers a level of courage to Bob that I don't know that is real or true.
I don't see it that way. I see it as.
Are you saying you're going to counter his counter to my
Yeah,
counter?
I am. I'm going to say everyone else is stressed out about the Cuban Missile Crisis, and Bob Dylan says, well, if everyone else is busy, I'm going to go take the main spot on stage at this
But
club.
I don't buy the argument that Bob Dylan was not concerned about getting incinerated by an A-bomb.
I mean, that's a good point.
I just
I
don't.
don't. He used it as the opportunity to get some action here. Who among us?
Who among us? Who among us hasn't compulsively
like,
kissed Joan Baez in the well of a club in the Village in the 60s?
That's
Wait, isn't this where Tim wanted to be called in?
yes. All right, I'm patching him in.
Did you know we were patching Tim in for
I
this?
didn't, but that's the best news I've heard all day.
You're going to have to put it on speaker, and we have to hold it next to the microphones.
Yeah, I got you.
That is a great Timmy pick you got there.
Yeah, man. I don't know if it's specific to me or it just comes up.
This is Tim Laramie, prominent Robert Zimmerman scholar.
All right, Tim. It is the morning after Dylan hooks up with Joan Baez in the alley of the Gaslight Club.
I like that.
They're watching the trash trucks take away, and the crisis has been averted. Everyone's okay, and now Joan Baez is looking around the house and trying to figure out who is this dude, right?
Yep, I like it.
So you're coming in clean. What, Tim? Give us your hot take on the first 40 minutes of A Complete Unknown and what you were experiencing when you were watching the movie.
I had a professor in college in my English major, and when we were studying Shakespeare, there was a new movie that had come out, and it was called Shakespeare in Love. I don't know if you all remember this.
1998.
And
a John
during-
Madden joint.
During our study of this Shakespeare unit, my professor said, okay, we're going to show you a clip from the movie, and this is the sexiest scene in the whole movie. So obviously that was very titillating for a bunch of young college students to see what scene was going to be selected in the steamy Shakespeare in Love film. And he proceeded to put the clip on, and that clip was a picture of Shakespeare writing his folios. And we all said, where's the TNA here? But we realized afterwards that what his point was, that the sexiest part of this was seeing Shakespeare in action writing his plays. Much like in A Complete Unknown, to me, the public, well-known scenes of Bob Dylan performing in public, we know what those were like. But it's these intimate behind-the-scenes moments, these morning afters, that really, really struck a chord with me when we see Bob Dylan casually tossing his notes to Blowin' in the Wind on the couch next to him after he has taken the lovely Joan Baez home to cook her breakfast. And when we get insights into these scenes, we can sit there and we can imagine for ourselves what it would have been like for Bob Dylan to be in an apartment in New York City, just penning casually the anthem that would take over the folk movement at this particular time. And then Joan Baez casually singing accompanying vocals to his amazing words and catapulting him into the next phase of stardom.
All right, so you're hitting on a number of themes here. Incredible that such a genius exists where he could just literally be in his underwear writing a song like this. But that's what's amazing about rock and roll, right? Is the best of the best are ultimately like not even trying that hard sometimes in their moments of greatness. But you bring up another cool point, Tim, which is like you're saying that Baez helped slingshot him into another level.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure I really picked up on that the first time I watched the movie, but you're right about that.
Tim can't hear me because of how we're mic'd up here, but
I
ask
feel
him
like
to
Joan
elucidate on that.
Baez
That's a
had
great point.
the cachet. She was very popular amongst the folk singers. She had a presence. She had a name that went with it. And as soon as Joan Baez starts singing Bob Dylan songs, that's that synergy point where they really lift each other up, obviously. And then one of the great, tragedies that you might say in this is how Joan Baez realizes that despite her many, many talents, she just pales in comparison to the shooting star of a young Bobby Dylan.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's got to be hard for her, right?
Absolutely. And again, you see her then get great notoriety from The Times They Are Changing or Blowing in the Wind, and everybody wants to hear it. Blowing in the Wind, play Blowing in the Wind. And Bob Dylan doesn't want to play that at all. He wants to go on to the next part.
Yeah.
He wants to continue his evolution.
It's an interesting point, too, that you're making, where how, like, intimidating and or like demotivating this guy coming in that is just such a genius, and all these people have been doing it for all these years, and all of a sudden they're like, holy Jesus, this guy's so much better. And like the one guy in the movie, maybe not the one guy, but the one guy that definitely seems to almost meet him where he's at, not in terms of skill or anything, but like is Johnny Cash, who's like, he finds that kindred spirit who also like kind of doesn't give a fuck,
Yeah, absolutely. And you see that relationship start to form when they can recognize in each other a little bit of that extra spice, that extra moment of genius. And I think that's one of the really interesting parts. I'm sure you'll get into that a little later, but yeah, I really liked how Bob Dylan could recognize that there was another kindred spirit.
Yeah, totally.
Wow. The intimacy of two people singing together like that.
Absolutely. And, not for nothing, but her voice does complement very well his in terms of the singing and elevate some of, his nasally vocals we know a little bit about. So without her voice adding to those songs, they might not have gotten the same level of popularity.
Well, that's a really good point. And by the way, and they hit on this in the movie later too, her performing some of his songs before he was ever really a known entity also helps. Shout out to the manager, Grossman, having the wisdom to have her performing his other clients' songs out in public. Let's give it up for all the people connecting dots out there in the music industry, right?
Absolutely.
The real heroes.
The managers. Excellent. Well, it sounds like you fellas are well on your way towards another insightful viewing of A Complete Unknown.
We are, and you can't see or hear him, but we have Gallivan wired in here through our headphones, so he is here. He's blowing you kisses right now.
Miss you,
funny,
buddy.
he asked. He couldn't hear you. You can't hear him, but he asked you to elucidate on the Joan Baez point, which you couldn't hear, but you naturally did. So
it's almost like we have a natural sync.
It's almost like there's a synergy amongst artists.
You guys are ridiculous. You just said that at the exact same time. This is great.
What? We did?
Yes.
That's Galaramy.
That's Galaramy, as they say.
Well, you've got me for another 2 minutes. Anything else you would like to query as we move along?
Top 5 Bob Dylan albums off the dome.
Top 5 Bob Dylan albums. All right, I'm gonna go Blood on the Tracks, Time Out of Mind, Nashville Skyline, Highway 61 Revisited, and we're gonna put Blonde on Blonde.
Every person's top choices are a real window into their creative essence, I would say. Good answer. Great answer, Timmer.
All right. Well, I can't wait to see where you all go after this and this journey. It's making me want to sit down and revisit.
Well, you got to do it with the commentary track. Get ready. It's coming your way.
All right. I love it.
Say hi to the family for us. Say hi to baby Ruthie.
Will do. You fellas enjoy your journey.
Love you, buddy.
Thanks, Tim. See you soon.
All right. Talk soon. Bye.
All right, there we go. Just got a real-time update on the Notes app. I'm trying to decide if I need to emotionally process that.
Just some reordering of some forthcoming observations. Don't
Oh,
panic.
nice. And here's the part where Sylvie hears Joan Baez singing his song on the radio. You're busted, Bob. The jig is up. Don't think twice it's all right. Great song. Obviously, Shane and I have played this one. We have a cover video on YouTube. Matt, Tim, I think I've played this song with almost everybody in one format or another at a Memorial Day or otherwise. Interesting sort of like plot skeleton involving this song, which is he plays it, she plays it, and then later in the movie, Johnny Cash references it, and it becomes clear, or at least I infer, that Dylan doesn't want to play that song anymore because it's too well known. So it's like a real microcosm of the arc of the film.
Let's hold some space for Joni's amazing California dream home, shall we?
It's pretty great.
Yeah,
pretty great.
Yeah, this place is sick, dude. This is what you want your pop star to be living in. I mean,
in that
here.
scene where he pulls up, and you see her amazing car outside this beautiful mid-century modern California house, and she comes out looking so beautiful in that sweater. It's like, oh.
Yeah. There's definitely some male fantasy wish fulfillment happening in that moment.
There is.
Mm-hmm.
Here we
All
go.
right, so this is 1963. So is this one of 3 Newport Folk Festival scenes?
Well, they're in Monterey right now.
Oh, this is Monterey.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, okay. So in this one, Bob is the new guy, and then when she steps up to the mic, then everybody is like applauding.
Right.
So she's the dominant creative force at this moment, and he's kind of drafting off of her.
Yeah, and I didn't realize until this movie that, and they covered it already, that she was singing his songs before he got a chance to really get out there. So yeah, she really helped him in a lot of ways like that.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the film does a great job of giving Joan her flowers. And we also didn't talk about that quick shot of her being on the cover of Time.
Yeah.
Before the suitcase gets thrown over the magazine. But that's a great context setting of like telling you where these artists were respectively in their journeys at this moment in time, you know?
And I didn't know that. I didn't know she was on Time.
I didn't have a full appreciation of that either at all. And I loved that as a way to like complete my own understanding and appreciation of both of them, you know?
Yeah, and a great part of this movie is giving her her due and putting her back on the map for people along with him.
Yeah, agreed. Here we go.
Big mail day for Dylan. First big check and a letter from Johnny Cash. Only in the movies, folks.
That's great.
I think I sat in this park last year when I was like waiting for a meeting to start. I think it's near the Soho Grand Hotel, if I'm not mistaken.
It is so crazy that these two musicians connected. Like, Bob Dylan writes him a letter, he writes back, and they become friends and pen pals.
Well, I always think really it's great. And I always think about this quote from Dylan that I don't remember the origin of it, but it's something to the effect of, one of the greatest skills I've always had is knowing how to choose my heroes. And I choose really good heroes. And he cites people like Hank Williams Sr., Woody Guthrie, of course. But I think Johnny Cash fell into that bucket for him I think he acknowledged and recognized the authenticity that Johnny brought to what he did. Even though Johnny, of course, was a huge star at this time, and a pop star, arguably, right?
I mean, he's on TV, so
Sure.
I would say yes to that. By the way, great quote, Matt. That is an excellent quote, and that's something I'm going to use in my meetings with artists.
Yeah.
Who are your heroes? Tell me who your heroes are. It was a window into your soul.
Yeah.
It is also, and not to maybe repeat the point, but it's interesting that not only did they connect, but they were very similar people in that they did what they wanted. They did not do what other people wanted.
Well, I would say, how much do you think is Bob Dylan taking that lead from Johnny Cash?
Well, interesting here, I think, because there was a period of Johnny Cash's career where he did do what people wanted him to do, and there's a lot of really bad Johnny Cash music out there showing that post-Sun. But Johnny's career arc was so interesting, especially with that late blossoming moment with Rick Rubin and the American records, right? Where he really reestablished that authenticity in that voice. But he had a very different journey. I don't think he always stuck by his guns in the same way that Dylan did creatively.
I don't know that in the 1950s and early 60s there was ever a reason for people to believe that that's what they should be doing as musicians. Like,
right.
I think this goes back to my albums thing, but it's like I don't know that people thought of music as like an ultimate form of expression at that time.
Right.
You know, they didn't think of
well, it wasn't. Yeah, no, totally.
It was more of a job.
Yeah.
Or a way to make money, I guess.
Yep. Or a vocation, or something you do socially at parties. Yeah, I think you're totally right. It's a great point.
Well, that's part of why these people were so iconic, is that they were the ones breaking that mold finally.
Yeah.
It was like it was like why the Beatles were so unique, because you didn't have a band before that. You had people. As iconic as they were, like Buddy Holly was enormous, but he was Buddy Holly and the Crickets. He wasn't a band. And then finally you had the Beatles, people who wrote their own songs as a band and performed. But that was happening near the time that all this was happening. Like, these people kind of stood out to the mainstream of just like, what is another cover that you put on an album and put it back out, you know?
Right.
Yeah, there's another parallel to Amadeus somewhere in there, which is like, you know, Mozart was like a punk, and he sort of accidentally became one of the more meaningful figures in the history of creativity, which they get to when he starts putting on operas and stuff like that, but he's already dying by that time in the movie.
Might I reference a movie called That Thing You Do?
I haven't seen it. I've not seen that movie. I know people love it.
You know, it's okay, but like, there's a part of that movie where, you know, they're kind of like a Beatlesy type of group that get like a one hit, and everyone signs them. But there's a part in the movie where the Tom Hanks character, who's like the music exec, tells them what their next record is going to be, and they say, and he's like, "Well, what do you mean? I've got all these songs I've written. I want to do our songs." And he's like, "Nope, that's not how it works. You're doing the songs we want you to do, and you're going to go tour, and you're going to do this and that." And basically, it all falls apart. But that was the time when people followed what the music execs wanted them to do, and they didn't. People didn't write their own songs, you know.
Well,
but really, record execs are the heroes of this in every music story. Maddie, maybe we can get 10, 15 minutes from you on that.
I mean, you know, where's my complete unknown?
Okay.
Who's going to be the person that figures out how you fix the liner notes before the CD booklet went to print?
We're approaching the moment that I was initially going to call in for before I invited myself to the rest of this commentary. But I want to call out a couple of things about what we're about to see with this performance. The first, well, I guess one big observation about the performance is that Bob is now sort of very famous. We've spent the last few minutes of the film establishing his level of fame, along with his new relationship with Johnny. But this sullen, sulking look, he's not a happy guy. He's not a happy camper at this stage in his journey, right?
Yeah.
And it's a great contrast between his mood off stage and also after the song and this moment he's about to have, which is profound and beautiful.
Oh, I love this performance, by the way. Funny that the guy who directed Walk the Line, the Johnny Cash movie, also directed this movie, James Mangold, has another Johnny Cash coming in, and for my money, as good of a Johnny Cash as Joaquin Phoenix is.
Agreed.
I mean, granted, we're not watching the whole movie of this character, but electrifying performance, like just so much attitude. And
I mean, this was the scene that I thought you were going to pick originally, Matt.
Well, I mean, it's no secret. Anyone who knows me knows I'm more of a Johnny guy than a Bob guy, even though Bob is so meaningful to me. Johnny is next level. Johnny is mythical in a way that religious figures are only to other people. Come on.
So good. Pointing the guitar like a gun at the audience.
And launching into Big River, too. Not Walk the Line, not another, like, really easy pick, but an amazing song that was, like, yes, a hit, but lesser known and just captures Johnny's
But it's
vibe.
also, it's like 10 out of 10 on the Johnny Cashiness of it.
Totally.
Like,
totally.
all the things that make him good are in that song.
Kind of an interesting thing is that, you know, we'll get to it later when he goes electric, but it's not like electric hadn't been done at these festivals. You know, there were electric instruments. And so maybe it's a point is like what was different about Bob.
Yep. Great point.
That's a good point, Shane.
Because it was a betrayal.
Yeah, I think that's right. He was not that person.
Now, I was laughing when this scene in the movie happened the first time because just the ultimate flex to have people singing along with you by the time you get to the second chorus of a song they've never heard before.
Totally.
This is one of the moments of the film where I'm like, this is like, to sing this song is when people were like just so gutted by it and so attached. And you realize, like, I think they captured this moment of him singing the song and the audience being kind of gobsmacked by it.
And eager to receive it, you know, and its message and the chorus. Instant recognition of how meaningful that sentiment is, right?
Yeah, one of the things I think about when I was like going through the soundtrack is Bob's got like a song for all these really important moments. Like, Bob, you need a song that's going to capture people's spirit the first time they hear it. So you can plug this song in that section of the movie. We need a song that captures the tension of Cuban Missile Crisis. All right, you can drop in Masters of War right there, you know? And then when he finishes at the end and he does It's All Over Now, Baby Blue, they ask him for acoustic and he basically gives them like a kiss off at that point.
Yeah.
Like, he's just got the song for each type of moment you can have in life, you know?
Another thing I love about this scene is Pete's really emotional response to it in the wings. And this is the apex
Yeah.
of Pete saying, this is it. This is the guy. We did it. And this movement is going to carry on, which makes the betrayal later on so much more painful for him, right? Because he had
So
a
does
vision for how this
Yes.
movement would carry forward into the future.
Very good point.
And Sylvie is watching him sort of ascend to another
yeah.
level that no longer includes her.
And Joan's reaction too, of like, oh, okay, he's the real deal. He can hang.
There's a moment there where they put Cash in the scene, and he kind of like makes this
Yeah.
like shaking
Yeah.
head, like, he's done it
But
again.
Son of
here,
a bitch.
guys, look at Bob's and Tim, the way Timmy rocks this scene. He sulks back into the stage and gives this contemptuous look at the crowd
Yeah.
that he just shared this amazing moment with. He's not happy. He wants to break free, guys.
All right, here we go. Here we go.
And
this
cut.
is it.
To 1965.
This
Here we go.
this is where the movie goes from a 10 to an 11 and a half.
This is just so great. Like, I'm sure you guys shared my reaction in the theater
Yeah.
at that particular
Yeah.
shot.
Well, the second time I saw the movie, when I already knew everything that happens, and I'm making sense of like, all right, like this is what that means.
Yeah.
Immediate rejection of all
Yeah.
of the goodwill up to that
And
point.
here we go. This is the scene that I asked to be dialed in for, and I will leave you guys after this. But he picks up the siren whistle. And do you have kids? Yeah. Thousands of them. I mean, all right, here's what I love about that moment. I love that it is both an Easter egg and not, right? I love that it is
Yeah.
an Easter egg for the fans who immediately recognize that iconic sound from the beginning of Highway 61 Revisited, the song, right? And I chuckled, and you could hear the other people in the theater chuckle who know Bob and know Bob's music because they recognize that sound. But it's also a harbinger of like breaking things, right? Harbinger of chaos, needing to break free, needing to reject everyone's expectations of him. And that's what that, curmudgeonly look in the last scene was meant to forebode, right? And to foretell.
Yeah.
He
Well-
needs to break things, and he needs to shake it up and reject everyone's expectations explicitly now.
So before you leave, Matt, one of the things that I wrote down when I listened to James Mangold's interview on the Rolling Stone podcast about this movie is he sat down with Dylan to go through the script a couple of times. That was the relationship that they had. It was 2 meetings
Yeah.
or something like that. And Bob says, "All right, so what's this movie about?" And James Mangold was not really ready for that question, but he just kind of spits out, it's about a guy who's suffocated in Minnesota, so he leaves and goes to New York to express himself. And he expresses himself to the full extent that a person can, and then he feels suffocated again by the success
Yep.
and needs to figure out a way out of it, which you could say is something that Bob Dylan does for his entire life, right?
Yep.
Absolutely. And I also love that this moment in the film. There was the siren whistle moment, which, as it turns out, is a totally artificial moment. The lore behind the siren whistle is that it was in the studio. Some people say Sam Lay brought it. Other people say Al Cooper brought it. But it was just sort of picked up spontaneously in the moment. But anyway, the song itself is a bit about chaos and danger and breaking things, right? And it has that last verse too, where it's like, not to throw any record executives under the bus or anything, but we would never do that. But it's what's the line? He found a promoter who nearly fell off the floor. He said, "I've never engaged in this kind of thing before, but yes, I think it can be very easily done. Will just put some bleachers out in the sun and have it on Highway 61. We're gonna throw you out there to the wolves. We're gonna let them devour you, because as we know from the rest of the lyrics of that song, nothing good happens on Highway 61, guys. But man, I just love the way they pegged that song, that sound, to this moment in the story and the arc. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and so this is the second half of the movie where now it's the other side of it. Like he's up there in the stratosphere, but finding excuses to not be.
Yep.
And this is the guy that I think both Matt and I thought was going to be Robbie.
Yes.
Robertson.
I was like,
Yes,
oh
he looks
shit,
like Robbie, for sure.
he's about to lock in with Robbie.
Galvin, before you got to run, and if you got to go, that's okay. But I was wondering if you could leave us with your maybe top 3 albums by Dylan. It doesn't have to be what you think the best are, just the top 3 that kind of come to mind.
I'm going to go top 10 for you. I'm going to go top 10.
Okay.
Ranked in order.
Yes.
I got them written down
Yes.
here. Number 1, Blood on the Tracks.
Wow, that's
Untouchable.
2 for
2,
2
Highway
on this
61
podcast so far.
revisited. Coming in at 3, we got Nashville Skyline. It's that Johnny connection for me. 4, Time Out of Mind. 5, Blonde on Blonde. 6, Hard Rain. Unconventional pick.
The live one.
Live
yeah.
album. 7, Desire. 8, another unconventional live album pick with the band, Before the Flood. 9, New Morning. And 10, Bringing It All Back Home.
Yeah.
That's where I gotta wrap it
Very
up.
nice.
Guys, thanks for having me on this journey. Enjoy the rest
Thanks
of
for
it.
joining.
Nice job, dude.
All right.
Loved it.
See you, boys.
Appreciate it. See you, man.
See ya. All right, so this is where I really thought it was Robbie Robertson because he's playing with, what could be interpreted as the Hawks at this point. Now, of course, I don't actually have all the history around this, so who knows? And now we know that it's not, but I was excited. I was like, ooh, they're keeping the door open for Complete Unknown 2?
I also like, the thing I like about this scene too is that it underscores again like just how popular he is and what a bummer it is for him too, because he comes into this bar to see this guy and then they start to recognize him and they go just nuts.
Yeah.
And like he's like, can't I just get a minute?
Yeah, he can't even enjoy the show at this piece of shit bar. So, yeah, can't even go outside anymore. That's not great.
Oh, since Matt just left us with his albums, why don't you tell us your top 10?
Okay. So I wrote down, this is actually more than 10 albums here. Because Matt went into a live album, I feel like I can go into some of the compilation stuff because the compilations are really important to me. Now, we never got into our Bob Dylan origin stories, which is something I would really like to hear from you. But I'm going to tee this up with that as a starting out point, which is that I didn't listen to a lot of Bob Dylan when I was younger. I always thought that Like a Rolling Stone was a really cool song, and I always remembered that, and I learned it on the guitar and all that good stuff. But it wasn't like in college I was like rocking out to a bunch of Dylan. I was friends with my friend Dylan, who I met my freshman year in college, who liked Bob Dylan. We all made fun of him for that, but the joke was on us because he helped get me into Dylan for the rest of my life. He had a copy of Desire that had supposedly a leaf from the tree where that picture was taken on the album cover. It was like inside the CD booklet that he carried around with him. He really liked Bob Dylan. So we would listen to Basement Tapes and what's the first compilation called that has all the alternate versions of those early songs on it?
I don't know.
It's like Bootleg Series 1 or something like that.
The cutting edge, the book, because I pulled up his discography.
So we would listen to that stuff all the time. But Desire hit me super hard as an album because to me, like, it's kind of the most rock and the angriest of the Bob Dylan albums. So for me, I was like a Pearl Jam guy at that point in my life, and my favorite band had been for the last 6 years or whatever it was that I was buying music when I was in college. And Hurricane and Isis and Black Diamond Bay were like rockin' kind of intense male vocal songs that made a lot of sense to me at the time, and definitely set me on my path of Dylan as the rock artist,
right? Which
is still my favorite incarnation of Dylan. So Desire is my number one. Blood on the Tracks is number 2. We're all pretty much aligned on that being a perfect album. Highway 61, I've got at 3, which, as we talk about what does Bob Dylan mean to you in your life, like there was a period of time where I first was getting my hands on digital music. Like I had a friend come over and download his entire music library onto my computer in 2004. It's funny, I reference this story all the time, but he gave me like an entire music library's worth of music. I don't know why he took it upon himself to do this, but one of the things that he gave me was Highway 61 Revisited, which I never owned before that, and I kind of discovered that album in 2004 or whatever, and blew my mind. I was like, oh, so there's a whole album of things that kind of sound like a Rolling Stone. Wow, this is incredible. Number 4 for me is the Rolling Thunder live album from the 1975 tour. And the reason I like that one so much is because, describing the sound of Desire, the sound of Blood on the Tracks, it's like a whole presentation of a bunch of his songs in that style. Right. So It Ain't Me, Babe sounds like a rock song. Lonesome Hattie Carroll sounds like a rock song. Even, what did I say? It Ain't Me, Babe? Hard Rain's Gonna Fall sounds like a blues rock song on that album. And that's my all-time presentation of Dylan. If I could hear all of his albums in that instrumentation, I would do it. I would sit down and listen to them all.
And why is that?
It's just something about it that hits for me. Like, I love the way that his vocal sounds over, there's like 4 or 5 guitars on stage on that tour. Yeah. Mick Ronson from David Bowie's band was playing lead guitar on all those songs. The guitar leads are incredible. Right, yeah. Like if you listen to the first song, which is Tonight I'm Staying Here With You, that song's on Nashville Skyline, and it's kind of like gentle and country-ish and pedal steel on the album, but in the live show, it's like a loud rock song with a big guitar solo right in the middle of it. Great. Like, I'll take that all day on Bob Dylan. Cool. That's my favorite version of Dylan. From there, we go Blonde on Blonde, another side of Bob Dylan, which is just an album I had on vinyl, and I'm particularly fond of it from the early period. Modern Times I put in there.
I like that one.
Which, to me, like, you guys all, and I don't know if you're going to reference this or not, but Time Out of Mind is a favorite for a lot of people. For later era Bob Dylan, I go Modern Times. I just like the way that album sounds. I think the instruments on it are cool. I love that it's like intentionally old-fashioned a little bit, you know? Infidels, I love. It's got Mark Knopfler playing on multiple songs, including Joker Man, which is a great, like, kind of easy listening Bob Dylan song. And then I don't know. I'm probably tied between Bringing It All Back Home and No Direction Home, the soundtrack to the Scorsese documentary we were talking about earlier, which is again like a lot of alternate versions and demos of very early Dylan, which to me like helped understand what all that folk music was about. All right, that was long-winded.
I like that.
Gone through like
Complete.
5 different scenes.
It's interesting. It's interesting your experience of kind of getting to know and your journey, I guess. Mine's very different because I never really dove into him from an album perspective. It was always songs. And I don't know why that is necessarily. I mean, he's one of those artists that as a kid is just ever present. You hear it everywhere. Even if you don't really know who you're listening to, it's like, oh, yeah, that's Bob Dylan. But when I got into it more when I started playing guitar, which wasn't until college. And my uncle actually used to play Tangled Up in Blue. He plays guitar and taught me that song. And that kind of started getting me to go back and listen to more of his catalog in the context of learning how to play guitar, which ultimately led me to Don't Think Twice, It's All Right, which is like probably my favorite song of his that we've played a billion times. And that probably puts Freewheelin' at the top for me.
That's great.
And then from there, I mean, I don't know that I have a top 10. Like I said, I didn't really go through the albums necessarily, but the ones that always come to mind are Freewheelin', Highway 61. I mean, I don't think there's a better song than what am I spacing on?
Like a Rolling Stone.
Like a Rolling Stone. Thank you. And then Desire is up there. I mean, I think you're right with the hurricane and the anger. I mean, there's a version of him playing it on YouTube live, and he just looks pissed when he's singing it. And it's like a great Dylan vibe.
Have you seen the Scorsese
No,
Rolling
no, I
Thunder
need to see it.
on Netflix?
No, we're supposed to. I'm saving that for viewing for us.
If you like that, you'll like that. Is all I'm gonna say.
And then I'm really into Nashville Skyline. I like that. In fact, there's a great moment I had back when I was playing with a band in college, and this guy was like, "Let's play." I'll get to the name of the song, but he said, "Let's play this one," and he taught it to me, simple chords. We played it. I'm like, "Damn, that song is awesome!" And he goes, "Yeah, it's Bob Dylan," and it was "To Be Alone with You." And I'm like, I just didn't know that song could be so. It like blew me away, and so that's Nashville Skyline is a big one for me. And then I know you don't like it, but John Wesley Harding is another one I really like.
I don't not like it. I haven't spent enough time with it.
It's got a vibe to it, and it's not like I found you just have to let that one play and just kind of listen to it like while you're cooking dinner or something, and it'll get into your soul.
Wow. Interesting that Bob Dylan is somebody who's been covered by so many other artists.
Well, and I think that's what blew me away about the To Be Alone with You and playing that at that time in college was that if you cover a song and you don't know what it is and it's just good, it just pays back to how good of a song it is, which maybe is an obvious thing to say, but there's plenty of people that do covers and they do their own version and it's great. But the core of the song, if it's that good, it's going to work in any
I don't think it's a crazy thing to say at all. I think it speaks to, I think it's something that you and I have talked about before, which, I hope this doesn't come back to haunt me on the internet, but I call it the Taylor Swift test, which is if somebody else recorded this song and I was hearing it for the first time, would I think it's a good song?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of her songs, especially in the second half of her career, where if like Joe Schmo artist, male or female, were to play that song, I really don't think that you would think it was something spectacular.
Right.
But when you put it through the filter of her star persona and what you know about her life and the costumes and the videos and the fandemonium surrounding her, it makes perfect sense as like a brand statement, but it maybe doesn't stand alone as a song.
Right. Yeah. So this is a great scene when they're in the hotel Chelsea.
Oh yeah.
Or the Chelsea Hotel, and he's just knocking on the random doors. But this is an iconic hotel for many reasons, and you've stayed there, right?
I filmed a music video there. Didn't stay there, but spent the day there, a long day.
Who was that for?
Kanye West and LaRue. Great song, great video. The video never came out. It's on my computer.
Oh, wait, that was the song. Which song was it?
It's In for the Kill.
In for the Kill, yes.
He did a remix of it. He did a couple of verses on it. Really good recording.
I remember seeing the video. You showed it to me.
I showed it to you. I have the video. It has never come out for a number of reasons, but definitely cool to be inside the Chelsea Hotel. And I would say they have not really fixed it up that much. It looks the same. Yeah.
Well, the list of musicians who have stayed and or gotten in debauchery and or written songs at the Chelsea is a very, very, very long list of people.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of the reasons that it kind of stays as what it is, and they don't plan to fix it up or anything else like that, which is great. Please, like, not everything has to be polished, you know?
Totally. It's another, this part where he's like, they had slept together, but he's up and waking her up while he's writing a song is another thing about him of just like, could not stop writing songs. Just always going, mind always going, which you see of other songwriters a lot. They're just like constantly fiddling, so to speak.
Yeah, it's got to come out of you. It's certainly not work. It's certainly not anything that you feel like, oh man, I better write some songs today, but I'd rather go to the grocery store. Like, the real artists, the real legends, like, it comes out of them. There's no other way to do it. They have to do it. They have to get it out of their system. That's what it's about. The real ones. What song is this? He not busy being born is busy dying.
Hold on, I know the song.
It's All Right Mama.
It's All Right Mama, yeah.
That's the one that he references in the Ed Bradley interview.
Yes.
Like the silver blade, a child's balloon.
So he's like, there's a magic to those songs. You don't sit down and just write that.
Yeah. And he says, I could do it once. I don't know that I could do it again, but I did it once, and that's what matters. Like, great interview. Really, like, sits with you.
She kicks him out.
Yeah, so now Bob doesn't really have anybody, right? He's not really with Sylvie. He's not getting along with Joan. What's he?
Someone's got to write these songs.
Yeah, that's good.
No, but you're right. It's a very isolating part of his journey. Because he doesn't, not only is the fame getting to him, he still wants to write his songs every once in a while. Like this scene, he doesn't want to play the same songs anymore. And he's kind of feeling a wall, so to speak, between himself and the audience. That's a good concept album someone could probably make about being a wall between.
Brick by brick, built up over time.
Yeah.
Until a plane crashes through it right after the first act. Yeah, we got to get to the wall after this one. This is on Another Side of Bob Dylan, one of my early favorites.
That's a good album.
Really bare bones. So he's saying some stuff to her off mic and other stuff into the mic, intentionally being deceptive,
right,
with the audience, which is cool.
And I don't know if this actually happened or not. Like, I don't know the historical accuracy of what we're seeing here, but the sentiment is definitely right, that he was railing against being put in a box,
Mm-hmm.
This is a sentiment I've seen from a lot of artists.
Yeah, I was going to say,
is not.
The topic for any artist, let's talk about it. If you pay $100 to go see Clapton or whatever it is, do you feel like you are entitled to see a certain type of show? Because certainly that wasn't always the case, and I think that goes back to the '60s thing of like when artists went from being entertainers to being actual like creative artists, right?
Right. Well, and that's an interesting point because it's in a lot of ways, in the last 20 years, especially, it's swung back where a lot of musicians are entertainers again and not just trying to be an artist.
Yeah.
Because I would say people, I think people do buy the ticket and they do feel entitled to hearing what they want to hear. And I think the artists that really drive more respect for me are the ones that show up and play what they want to play. And it's like, a lot of times they still will do the song that they know the audience wants to hear just because they have to.
Yeah.
Or because they're like, they want to give that to the audience. But there's plenty of artists that like will just not listen to the crowd when the crowd asks for a song.
Well, look at Taylor Swift, and it's again, this is no disrespect. It's the same show note for note every night because of the degree of production that's happening on stage. There's no other way to do it when you have dancers and stage has to move into different configurations. They inject a secret song into the set each night. So there's like one space in the set where they can improvise, which is, that's a nice accommodation. People get excited about that. But, Pearl Jam comes out and Eddie Vedder writes the set list by hand 10 minutes before the show every single night. It's one of the reasons that those set lists are so popular to look at for fans.
Yeah, that's a good example. They're always changing it up, always. I remember seeing Ryan Adams once, and I don't know what album he was touring on, but it was mostly an acoustic show, even though he had his band with him. And people were yelling out the songs they want to hear, and he just says into the microphone, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but I have this thing called a set list.
Good contempt for the audience on display right there.
Always.
But that's fair.
I mean, who did we see this last summer? We saw Van Morrison, who is famous,
notorious,
for not playing anything or just all of his more recent stuff. And the show was amazing. I have to say, it's like you got to see him if you haven't. It's a really he's very, very, very talented.
He's incredible.
And
now.
I think the only song he did that people know was Gloria. So like that's
all
the
right.
one he picked. Or like any of his, not people know his older, famous stuff, because he just picks his newest thing and he goes after all that stuff.
Well,
I respect.
I had a little bit of a cheat code on Van Morrison, which is I went to see him doing Astral Weeks as a tour.
That's pretty good.
So at the very least, I knew I was going to get some Astral Weeks tunes, and it was great. Hollywood Bowl, beautiful show.
Great scene here with. Music lore. We both love a good lore.
Now this is an aspect of the story that I knew a long time ago because my dad would never miss an opportunity to tell me about Al Cooper and how he didn't really play the organ and all this other stuff.
Yeah,
people love to tell this story.
This is it's one of the greats. And it's like one of the things is like there's a reason why like sometimes the organ is late. It's because he didn't know the chords, and so he's watching the band.
Oh, luckily the song's in C. It's all the white notes. You can improvise quite easily.
Yeah, exactly. But if you listen, not to geek out on it too much, but if you listen to the song, you listen to that organ. No one would have the balls to play that the way that, like, no one would do that. No
a
one
professional
would
organ player would never choose to play it that way, but that's the magic of it. It adds to the ragged glory of it. Which, by the way, I mean, we can get to this later, but I think if I had to write down what the greatest song of all time is in any given year of my life, there are probably more times than not that I would say like a Rolling Stone by Bob Dylan.
I agree.
It's kind of everything that's great about music.
It's routinely comes up as like maybe that's just the best song ever written.
So wait, he has just left Joan?
We just came from the scene of more recording
Okay.
of Highway 61, and now it's the time for the next Newport thing. But he has kind of finished the tour with Joni, and they are not happy with each other.
Right. So the table is set for them to have a tense encounter during
Correct.
Newport Folk. So.
And Bob is like, "Hey, let me bring my other girlfriend."
Yeah. Like he's got a song for every occasion. He's got a different companion based on what he's looking for that day.
Exactly.
Interesting that they use Mr. Tambourine Man in this moment. Like, actually, when I was listening back to the soundtrack, I was like, where does this song fit into the movie? Because I always think of this song as like, this is the one that's kind of basic, and also the Byrds version is more popular than his.
Mm-hmm.
So I think of it as sort of like a nothing Bob Dylan song. But I'm sure it was important to some people.
It was an arguably pretty huge song. I'm sure someone out there liked it.
I'm going to get canceled for saying that Mr. Tambourine is nothing.
I'm sure someone liked it.
Now, I don't know about you. I saw that big yellow building outside, and I'm like, man, I really want to go hang out in Newport. Seems pretty cool.
It's been a long time since I've been in Newport like once or twice. Don't remember Yellow Building.
I've been to once because I went and I looked at the boarding school that is there. And I applied and I got in, but I went to Choate instead in Connecticut.
I've also never been to the Newport Jazz Festival or Folk Festival. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I would really like to see that someday. That'd be a fun trip.
Probably a pilgrimage we must do at some point.
I think we must. I'd say we must. We are going to see Bob Dylan though this year.
That is right.
I've never seen him. You have?
I have not.
Yeah. So why do you want to see Bob Dylan when he's this old and doesn't sound amazing? Well, I guess I would say I just want to see him live.
Well, and we've talked about this quite a bit of like we are at a time when all of these iconic people are starting to leave this earth, and I want to see them before I can't anymore.
I mean, well said. We've done a good job. We saw Clapton last year. We saw Gilmore last year.
Those are pretty big boxes to check.
That's so good. He takes it. He just takes it. And he's wondering if Sylvie saw her do that. I'd never caught that before. What song is this?
I don't know. So this is, we're getting to the scene that is probably my favorite of the entire movie for many, many reasons and layers.
Yeah, lay it on us.
And, he singing this song, which you can, again, find a live video of them singing this together at Newport, where they're certainly in the actual history, we're not mad at each other. They were having a good time. But in the context of the film, I think there's many layers here. And I think I saw an interview with James Mangold who talked about like the importance of this scene being when that Sylvie sees these two and understands that there's been an affair. But I don't interpret this scene like that at all. And my thing is like, this song is very well noted as being not about a woman at all. And it's about the fact that he is saying to the audience that I am not the prophet. I am not the person that you think I am. He just wants to play his songs. He doesn't want to be endlessly interpreting them. And so what I like about this scene is that while Sylvie's watching, is she realizes that, the song is in some ways about her. Like, it ain't me. Like, you actually can't be with me, because the only way I know how to communicate to people is in music and singing my songs. And you want me to be a different person so that we can be together, and I am not that person. So I'm not who you were looking for. And in the scene, she realizes that. And it's one of the reasons she leaves, is that I can never be with this person, because it's just not, he is not open to me.
That's a great take, and it actually makes me like the movie more, because when I saw it the first time, in my mind, it's exactly what you just described. She's realizing they had an affair, now she wants to leave. So that makes the movie a little bit more about their love triangle than it does about songwriting.
Right.
But the way that you describe it, he's not knowable to anybody, whether it's the public or this person in a relationship or Joan Baez.
Right.
He's not possessible to anybody. And that is sad.
Yes.
Because you'll never be able to have that person for yourself. That's not available to you.
Yes.
That makes me like the movie more. I'm glad you said that, because it's the only part of the movie that I don't love is the next scene where she's going to like the ferry and he's trying to get her to stop.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's part of why she realizes she cannot, as much as he's like, please stay. She's like, I can't do that. Like, I will never be able to know you.
She's a person too, and she deserves to have somebody that's invested with her, not unknowable, untamable. Although from the male standpoint, the idea of a fuckboy anthem that exonerates you from ever having to have any responsibilities in a relationship is definitely something exciting about that.
I mean, the other thing about that scene that's, that doubles down on what I said is also like him and Joan in the scene are not getting along, but the minute they start playing the song, she's smiling and they're communing again, because it's in the music.
Yeah.
It's in the music that he can be.
Well, as people who play music, you and me and our friends who were on previously, there is something really special about the communion. I love that. I love that little hand gesture that he does. That's just like primo Chalamet. There's something really magical about what happens when you start playing music with somebody else. And you are in rhythm together, and you're using your shared knowledge of chords and harmony and melody. I could go play like a Rolling Stone with somebody who I've never met before in Tokyo, and we would be playing the same chords and singing the same lyrics, and we could do it, and it would be pretty awesome.
100%. I mean, there is something that happens when you're playing live with somebody and you connect. Because as you said, you could play like a Rolling Stone with anybody and get through it. But it's a different thing when there's actually like a musical connection. And like why that thing happens with certain people and not others, I don't know.
Chemistry.
But yeah, when it happens, it is pretty incredible and fun.
Yeah, I agree with you. The chemistry between players is what makes it special. That's what the Beatles had. I'm sure you've played in countless bands over the years. I'm sure there are moments where you've felt like connected to people based on the dynamic that you get going, and it's pretty special. It's a little bit cosmic.
Very much so.
That's good. He loves the chaos. It's a little forced, but at the same time, you have to have it in the movie. Like, the movie is
a story of these people bouncing off each other.
Yeah, and a story of his own chaotic to a degree energy and unknowability. Is that a word?
Good connection to the title of the movie. By the way, here's an example of how good Like a Rolling Stone is as a song. Not one but two movie titles pulled out of the lyrics of that song. A Complete Unknown being this movie. No Direction Home being the title of the Martin Scorsese movie.
Yeah.
Probably others that we're not even thinking of.
Another, interesting thing about covers of that song is one of the guys who did an amazing cover of it, Jimi Hendrix, at Monterey Jazz Festival, like when he really was like killing it. But he has a great version of that song, and it you kind of forget that, nowadays if we hear a song on the radio, we can play it back 100 times on Spotify. We can look up the chords, we can analyze it in all the ways, but back then they couldn't really do that. And he, I think, performed that song not too long after it actually came out, which just speaks again to the genius.
So he just
Jimi
whipped
Hendrix.
it up, yeah.
But he listened to it, he could hear it, got it, and then reproduced it in a way that was very unique.
Well, I'm sure we've all met people who have that ability. Not me, but there are others I've observed who will just jump right in when you're playing something and understand how all the pieces fit together almost like supernaturally. Ryan Tedder is like that.
Who's that?
He's a songwriter, frontman of One Republic. He just understands how a song fits together like the first time he hears it. But there's lots of people out there like that. It's special. It's cool when you get to witness it.
Very much so. I need one of those shirts, by the way.
So cool that he does respect Pete Seeger. He does want to allow him to get it out.
Yeah.
He doesn't want this continuing to hover like a cloud over their relationship.
That just reminds me of another thing of him, of like the musicians who he connected with and befriended to a degree, and the ones he didn't. like kind of famously didn't get along with the Rolling Stones, but like George Harrison, which led to
the Wilburys. All right, let's talk about the Wilburys. I think I might have ripped it off from something else I saw on Twitter, but I couldn't stop thinking about it, which is like what this movie needs is a post-credit scene where the credits are halfway through, and then Jeff Lynne, peeks in through the door and says, I've got an idea about the Wilburys initiative.
The Traveling Wilburys cinematic universe.
Yes, that sets the stage for 5 more movies, culminating in the Traveling Wilburys movie, but only after you get the George Harrison movie, the Petty movie, Roy Orbison. Who else is there?
I would sign up.
Jeff Lynne himself.
That's it. Yeah.
ELO.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you know the story. It's all in the Tom Petty documentary, Running Down a Dream, which is a great movie. But so Lynn produces George Harrison's album that has Got My Mind Set on You on it. Mm-hmm. Petty is impressed by that album, gets Jeff Lynne to have him come produce his solo album, which is Full Moon Fever, Tom Petty's biggest album in a decade. And then I can't remember if there's another Bob moment, but I think it's possible that just after Full Moon Fever is where all the dots connect. And Jeff Lynne gets them all in a room, records it. I'm sure he helped with the songwriting. Jeff Lynne's definitely seems like the glue in that situation. It's also hilarious to me that the Bob Dylan song I call it the Bob Dylan song. It's the one that he most is out in front of as far as the vocals go. Tweeter and the Monkey Man. Absolute.
Like the rest of this album is like, we're all getting old together, but it's nice and okay. Feels good to be comfortable in your own skin. And then Bob Dylan's got a song about like, so this guy's an undercover drug dealer working for the FBI. They figure him out. He gets killed. There's a murder-suicide at the end of it. It's like so bleak and intense. Right in the middle of the Traveling Wilburys album.
Yep. Oh, great scene.
Here we go. Now, did this really happen?
I doubt it. Or who knows? I just love this. They tore up Johnny Cash.
Been up all night drinking. So now all of the sort of people that Bob have ever been meaningful to Bob, now they're bouncing off him, you know, like constellations in the moments leading up to the big show.
Yeah. I do like, you know, he's
this is where the Johnny Cash performance really pays off, because him being really funny and cool is like, this would be lame. This might be lame otherwise.
Yeah. No, and it's like another, you know, example, whether this happened or not, I don't know, but like where, you know, Bob's wants to go do his electric thing, but obviously feels torn because he's letting down, you know, his kind of mentor of Pete Seeger. And Johnny Cash essentially is like,
oh yeah, no, that's a good
you
point.
should go do you.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
Track some mud on the carpet.
That's really cool. That's great. It's just a good script. You know, you think about all the movies that are about musicians or historical figures in general, like, it's hard to do it and not make it just seem like a Hollywood script.
Yeah.
But they do just do such a good job with this movie. Writer of the movie, Jay Cox, collaborator of Martin Scorsese, worked on Gangs of New York, among a million other things. Just really quality script. Great story.
Well, they did, and they made a really good decision to just focus on sort of two moments.
Good times. What you're seeing is sort of quintessential, like, this is lame at Newport Folk Festival. This is how far in the past they're facing currently at the time. Although I think I would actually kind of enjoy that show if I got to see it.
I bet it would be great. There's Cash.
Probably, it's got to be hard to get that log up on stage. Right? Like, who does that? Who's the guitar player that they talk about?
Mike,
like, we skipped over that.
Mike Bloomfield.
Bloomfield.
Yeah.
And there's a whole scene where Dylan's calling saying, I need you to get me Mike Bloomfield.
Yep.
What was he playing in at the time?
He was in the Paul Butterfield Blues Band. And he had his own thing for a little bit too. But he was a very like well-known blues guitar player from back in that era that people really liked. And he was, you know, that's where it came from. Like, who could I get for guitar? And they were like, well, you want Bloomfield, and that's why I got him.
Wow.
And then I guess when they were in the recording studio, Bloomfield was trying to figure out what to play to Like a Rolling Stone, and he was playing some like bluesy stuff, and Bob Dylan said, none of that B.B. King crap. Not crap, but he's like, none of the B.B. King stuff. And so that's that kind of led him to doing that kind of style of lead that you hear in that song, which is not really solo-y, right? It's like chord based and like arpeggios and
I would say arpeggios and very light melodic asides in between the verses.
right.
Although there's quite a lot of bluesy soloing on the other songs on
Yes,
this album,
yes.
like this one. This song's on another side of Bob Dylan?
Maggie's Farm.
Yeah.
Yes. No. I think it's on.
I think it's on Highway 61?
No, it's the one right before that. What was it called? Bringing It Back? Bringing It All Back Home, I think. Yeah,
Oh,
yes.
that's what I meant to
Yes.
say, actually. So it's a little bit of a sticking point here. Bringing It All Back Home is out
Correct.
as an album at
Yep.
this time. So nobody should be surprised to hear these songs. If you've been paying any attention
Right.
to Bob
There are
Dylan.
electric songs on Bringing It All Back Home, and I mean, I think what the real issue is that while he was putting out that music, this folk festival is sort of the mecca, so to speak, for them for folk music, and this is where folk music is the center point.
Right. So he says that's right. He
Yes.
says right there, we don't need to be promoting this.
Yes.
Anybody can hear that in Jukebox, as if they have a duty to curate and cultivate
Yes.
we do need to be promoting other stuff.
Yes.
Oh. Do you think that did that really happen?
I don't know if there was definitely some squabbling. I don't know how much of a fight there was.
There was some
Like
wrestling.
You can find an interview with Pete Seeger, who, because there's the scene coming up here where he goes over and he looks at some axes and he thinks about just taking it down.
Yeah.
But Pete Seeger did go up to the sound people and try to get them to turn it down. He says years later the reason was because he couldn't hear the words.
Oh, right.
Now, I don't really buy that, but that's what he says.
Oh, okay. Somebody in the crowd goes, "Play Tambourine Man." So there's another reason that you had to have Tambourine Man in that other scene.
Right.
Yeah, rad song. Again, like when I downloaded Highway 61 in that 2004 in that period of time, I was like, wow, there's so many just like rock and attitude Bob Dylan songs that I didn't even know existed.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I, the point you make about bringing it back home, which has all these electric songs in it, like, I think people, especially me, like, I forget that early album had all that stuff. I mean, that's where Subterranean Homesick Blues is. That's where Maggie's Farm. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on. It's also got It's All Over Now, Baby Blue. So
I guess, like, was there not any sort of public reaction to that album?
I mean, there was, but I don't know what it is. There must have been, right?
I guess that takes
because
away
Subterranean
from...
had that little video. He was like holding the cards up, and I don't know where they did that or when that came out.
Yeah,
but.
so that was out there. That video, iconic. In Excess, years later, borrowed from that for the Need You Tonight Mediate music video. Do you remember this?
No.
So, part of Kick, campaign, it was New Sensation into Devil Inside.
Yeah.
And then the third single was Need You Tonight. Now, can you imagine how big this album already is, how high it's flying on the back of those first two singles?
Pretty big.
And then Need You Tonight takes you into the next level? Oh, this is just great. Like, and now you're in the movie theater and you're just like, I'm feasting. My steak has been plated and served to me, and it is going down smooth.
So, this song what's to me so great about it is not only does it have a million instruments on it that all sound good, like like there's a piano and an organ and a guitar and a rhythm guitar and like and it all fits,
And acoustic
somewhere
in the background.
100%. And not only you got this musical thing happen, the lyrics themselves are really great, and then he's also singing it in a way that is both melodic and kind of beautiful, but also very poetic. Like, especially when it gets to the next verse where you're like, oh, Miss Lonely, you're only gonna like it, that kind of cadence. Like, I would never ever think in a million years to sing something like that. It's almost like a poet, like this poetic kind of.
It's almost rap. It's like knocking on the door of how do you blend rhythm and melody and speech.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which is essential for a song where you're supposed to be listening to the lyrics.
Right.
If the singing was better, you might not think as hard about the lyrics.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably right. Because it is like, before you came over, I sat down and was playing like Rolling Stone by myself. It's so hard for me to sing that song because I can't. There's a rhythmic quality to the vocals that is hard to duplicate without knowing it really, 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 really well.
Well, I also think if you ever play guitar alongside the recorded version of that song, I think there's a part where he basically skips a beat.
Where he what?
It's basically like skips a beat.
Yeah.
I think there's some incorrect playing on that
interesting.
song. I can't tell you for sure, but a lot of times I'm listening to the song and I feel like Dylan missed a moment there, but they just kept rolling.
Some of the greatest, many of the greatest songs of all time have lots of mistakes on them. Like everybody.
So he comes back to give them the acoustic song they want, but it's a song about how the acoustic era is over.
There you go. And someone yelled out Tambourine Man again.
See, Tambourine Man taking some heat on this for no good reason. Catching some strays.
He does a good job with this song. Because I've watched the live version of this from Newport a million times. It's so powerful. And he does a good job.
Never loved this song until I saw this movie. And then I'm like, oh, well, in context of everything else in his life, in pop culture, at the festival, the song and the lyrics definitely took on a new meaning for me. And that song I find to be quite powerful now.
So I have an anecdote about this song, which is I didn't know this as a Bob Dylan song first. I knew it as a Van Morrison song. There's a great Van Morrison cover.
Really?
Yep. And it was only like after hearing that I realized it was a Bob Dylan song. But also, when I first heard it, I thought it was a love song. I thought what the guy was saying was, or the lyrics were saying was, "It's all over now, baby blue," because like I'm here. You don't have to worry anymore. It's all over.
Yeah.
It's all over now. We can be together. But that's not. That is not the lyrics. So it's like a totally wrong interpretation. But the way Van Morrison sings it in that song, it's very, very, very pretty. And this one, Dylan's version is just way more raw.
Well, and interesting that he continues to play this song for decades, which is not the case for all the songs in this era. He tends to not like favor one era versus another, or play the hits all that much. But the version of this in Rolling Thunder is really, really good.
I bet.
They shoot him in profile for a lot of the second half of the movie.
They do. That's a good point.
So that's sort of like a reference to the iconography of Bob taking over for the man.
I wonder if this hotel exists.
Good question. It's cool. It looks like a seaside
It does.
hotel, motel you'd see in a beach town. Wildwood, New Jersey. East Coast.
There's that guy.
Stayed up all night smoking that one cigarette.
He's really pensive. There she is.
Really just what a movie star performance from Monica Barbaro. It's so psyched that she got an Academy Award nomination.
I can't believe this movie didn't win anything still.
You know, it was cool that it got nominated for Best Picture.
I thought he was going to win for Best Actor.
You know what? They'll give it to him in a couple of years. You know, they'll give him the Leo version, which is like maybe you didn't get it for your big movie star performance, but you'll get it from something else
Yeah.
where you like have to fuck yourself up physically or something.
Right. I like that. Isn't that what you wanted? And he doesn't answer. It's like you don't get it.
Yeah,
But no one gets it.
they're not going to tell you what he really wants. They're never gonna spell it out for you.
Because he never has.
Yeah. Movie opens with Woody Guthrie. Movie basically closes with Woody Guthrie.
Is that a Woody Guthrie song we're hearing right now?
I think so.
I think you're right. No, I think it is. And the song Foreshadowing, which I'm sure is no accident, as it placed in this movie, you know? And his next album after this is Blonde on Blonde, right? I think it is.
Yeah. Which, like, that in itself is hard to comprehend because that's kind of like a pop album in a way. Like,
Yeah.
it's very accessible stuff, all recorded in a pretty friendly, easy to listen to way.
Also a double album, which nobody did.
Yeah.
So I thought what was really interesting, because I've listened to that album a couple times now just to try to take it in. And that first song is the one where everybody's getting stoned.
Yeah.
It's just like it's purposely a ridiculous song to open an album with, and he's doing it on purpose. You can like tell, right?
Also, does not that song also open up the Greatest Hits album?
Oh, good question. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it does. I'm pretty sure that's how I came to know it. Really sad. Now, I'm in the theater and I'm like very emotional at this point. All of Bob's stuff. Can't save Woody Guthrie. Can't save himself.
And he's off.
And the journey continues. He's come no closer to peace.
And won't.
And won't. Just fucking unbelievable. There you go.
Whew.
I thought that the original version of this song would be playing over the credits.
Yeah.
I don't want to say I was disappointed, but would that have hit even just 1% harder? I don't know. He's the only songwriter to be awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. He did not attend the ceremony.
That
there
coming
you go.
in last, he did not attend the ceremony, is just the perfect.
Beautiful movie, unbelievable movie. Glad that we are able to watch it.
Yes, big thanks to Matt Gallivan for making the first half of the film, commentating with us.
And Tim Laramie.
And Tim Larry with a special call-in.
For everyone weighing in on their Dylan albums. And it's been a real treat.
Awesome.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
That's it. Let's sign it off.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.
Ain't no use in sitting one